a motion to go back into regular session for the committee of the whole meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to return to open session of the committee of the whole meeting. Chair, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. I have a motion and a second to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting for January 2018. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? No. We adjourn our committee of the whole meeting. At this time, I will call the Iredell-Statesville Schools Board of Education January business meeting to session. It is our policy to begin our meetings with a moment of silence in which board members, staff, and guests may privately reflect in their own way of the business of this meeting. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we move into our agenda, I would like to clarify our public comment sign-up procedure to be more aligned with our policy and give everyone the opportunity to speak. Our sign-up sheet is out front. Anyone wishing to speak to the board must sign up prior to our public comment session. There will be no additional sign-ups after public comments start. While the board welcomes our shareholders' views, please remember comments should not be slanderous or personal in nature. The board does not usually comment or respond to public comments. To be fair to everyone, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Thank you. Board members, Mr. Johnson, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Page, at item Roman numeral 4, letter C, our law enforcement partners are not going to be able to attend tonight. And in that place, I have some transportation employees that I'd like to recognize.
Okay, go back over that again, Mr. Johnson.
Roman numeral 4, letter C, our law enforcement partners are not here tonight. So in that place, there are some transportation department employees I'd like to recognize.
Any other changes? Device discussion and vote, we're going to put that off to February. Is that correct?
I think you said in your committee of the whole meeting that you were going to delay a decision on that till February. So we'll bring that back to you at the CAL.
Okay, to February. So we will scratch F under 5, Roman number 5, F, device discussion. Board members, any other changes? At that time, the chair would now entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The agenda is approved. At this point in time, we'll move into consent agenda. Ms. White, budget adjustments.
Okay, we have a budget amendment that was being prepared back in December, so I don't really remember what's on it. Who controls this thing?
I'm going to control it from there.
Standard stuff, I'm sure. The state public school fund had some adjustments, some restart budget cleanup, technology allotment to adjust that to actual, because that doesn't come in until later. School connectivity, E-rate funding, The local current expense budget amendment, no change to the overall budgeted fund balance, just moving money around between programs. The federal grant budget amendment, capital outlay budget amendment, that's mainly for school buses and school bus debt payments. And our other special revenue fund budget amendment, mainly for some donations that we have received.
Board members, any questions, comments? Ms. White? Thank you, Ms. White. Dr. Hussain, you've got personnel.
Mr. Page, Mr. Johnson, members of the board, you've had the opportunity to review the January personnel report. Are there any questions regarding any of the items included in that report?
Board members, any comments, questions of Dr. Hussain? Thank you, Dr. Hussain.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have minutes for December 4th and December 11th. Board members, you've had a time to read over these. Any comments, questions about the minutes?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
on the Committee of the Whole, December 4th, 2017, and I'm sort of new to this, but under the item discussion, item 2, school calendar, I asked for a school calendar with a spring break in March, and as of that request, we now have 4 calendars for we gave to parents and students. I don't know if that should have been put in here or not. Your guidance on this.
Well, I think that's up for discussion tonight. We can't include that. Kelly, can you make sure you include that?
Just put the sentence, there were 4 calendars
That,
presented.
no, that Mr. Howe requested a 3rd calendar.
Well, we have, instead of 2, we have 4 now.
Yeah, I know. I don't know where the 4th one come from. Do you?
Well, there's.
You asked for a 3rd one, right?
I asked for a spring break,
Yeah.
and I got 2 different ones.
Okay. All right.
And I'm sorry, I should have done this prior. I just should have showed Kelly. There's just a couple of names on here that just need to be corrected. So I've highlighted them. If I can just send them down to you.
Mr. Howe, make your statement again on what you want that sentence to say.
I just asked, that we could give parents the choice of spring break in March, because it would be near the end of the 9 weeks. And my reasons were, I always felt as a teacher that I needed a break then and not in April or late March. So she did provide those, and in fact she gave 2 choices, and for consideration of students and parents. And that was it. And I'm really asking, should that be in the minutes? I think it should, because the history of that is important.
I mean, yeah, we can include, it's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Very good. So you'll include that. Any other? You'll get the name corrections.
right
Any
here.
other corrections? Comments? If not, at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda, including our minutes.
Mr. Page, may I ask,
Sure.
did you need to approve the contract for the new assistant principal that you discussed? Was that going to be considered tonight?
If it's not on this,
I didn't see that. Was that
I
in your
didn't see it
stuff?
on there either.
Oh, okay, all right. She said she's already been approved. That we were just.
So she was on our last personnel report?
She was on the December
Okay.
report, and the
Yeah.
contract just has to be reviewed.
You're right. Okay. Yep. So we're good with that. Did I get my motion in a second?
You don't have a motion or a second?
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to.
Motion to approve as amended.
Got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda and minutes as amended. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move into Section 4, recognitions. Ms. Weiberg.
So as you probably know, the district puts together holiday cards, and for the last few years we've been doing student art contests for our holiday cards. The last couple of years we have put these cards out on Facebook to have the general public vote on which ones they like the best. And that's been very fun. And tonight we'd like to recognize our winners. And I think if whomever is here, when I call your name, if you would come up front so I can get a picture of everybody. Our K2 winner, and we divide it up, much like the way we do other art contests. Our K2 winner is Lila Chundrick from Third Creek Elementary School, and I know she's here. Our 3-5 winner is Keely Underwood from Cloverleaf. Here's our K2. You like Vanna, and then turn around and show everybody else. These cards were really gorgeous. Our 6-8 winner is Brooklyn Hansen from Northview. Brooklyn here. That's another gorgeous shot. And our 9-12 winner is Elizabeth Lates from Crossroads. Is Elizabeth here? Gorgeous.
Wow.
Isn't that gorgeous? So, if I could get the two of you to move up here, and then Mr. Johnson, could you come down here and have your presentation of our students? Look at picture of that home. Tell me what your favorite thing to study in school is.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Weiberg. Now, board certified teachers, Mr. Todd.
Chairman Page, board members, Mr. Johnson, it is my distinct privilege tonight, after 3 long years of the National Board Professional Teaching Standards, of reimaging the process, to come before you tonight to announce newly certified National Board certified teachers for Iredell-Statesville schools. Before I do that, though, I just want to share a couple metrics with you that I found interesting when researching National Board certification. Across our nation, North Carolina leads our nation in total number of National Board certified teachers, with a little over 21,000 National Board certified teachers. Across our nation, total renewed candidate for National Board certified teachers, North Carolina again leads our country in renewed National Board certified teachers at just under 900. And total new National Board certified teachers, we came in second, and at 616 National Board certified teachers. What that means for ISS, newly certified teachers, we have 7 we're going to recognize tonight. Total renewed certified teachers, 13. And total number of certified, National Board certified teachers district-wide, 151, which is a huge accomplishment. We're very proud of these accomplished educators. Due to Mother Nature being a little bit iffy tonight, we may not have the full attendance of everybody, but I'm going to need some help in honoring these individuals. Chairman Page, Mr. Johnson, if you don't mind to step up front and help me give out the plaques. We'll start with the newly certified National Board certified teachers. And if you, upon recognition, when you come up and receive your plaque, if you'll remain up here, what we would like to do is get a photo of everybody together. First individual we'd like to recognize tonight is from Mount Morn, IB, Mr. Lee Catchpole. Second individual I'd like to honor tonight is Miss Gina Constantine. Gina, you here? Yep, okay. Woodland Heights. Third individual I'd like to honor tonight is from MB Mills, Miss Donna Grant. Next, from Woodland Heights as well, Miss Dawn Kennett. From Lakeshore Elementary School, Miss Lois Paris. And her base is in ADR, Miss Erin Robertson. Board and Mr. Johnson, these individuals went through a re-image National Board certification process that took over the period of the last 3 years. These individuals are the first graduates of the new process. Please join me in giving them all a hand.
State would come through and give them what they deserve.
This is where Mother Nature impacted my invite list. Please stay up with us, Mr. Page and Mr. Johnson. I do have certificates for our renewals, our National Board Certified renewals. First individual I'd like to recognize is Miss Angela Benson. Second individual, Mr. Eric Cook. Miss Elizabeth Dobson. and Miss Kelly Trudell. Let me just survey the crowd. Did I not catch anybody? Good. I've verified with everybody tonight. Congratulations.
Mr. Johnson, you have some recognitions?
Yes, sir. This next recognition is for some folks that truly are unsung heroes of the school system. And we had a hard time getting these folks here tonight because they just don't like to be recognized. As a matter of fact, when I spoke to a couple of them about the recognition tonight, the question that came back to me is, why are you recognized? And I was just doing my job. But I think once you hear the story, you can kind of understand they were doing more than their job. Back on December the 14th, I think it was, we had an early release day that day because of bad weather. And if I remember correctly, I think we dismissed our elementary schools at 1:30. Is that right, Richard? Yeah, 1:30. So our buses started rolling at 1:30. An hour later, approximately an hour later, we dismissed our secondary schools, our middle schools, and our high schools. Now, on a good weather day, from the time the first bus rolls to the last bus gets back, it's about 3 hours. That's how long it takes to run those dual routes and get back in. On this particular day, when everybody was extremely nervous and worried about the buses being out on the snow and the ice and then all of the traffic and whatnot, I particularly was very concerned about making sure we got all those kids home safely and all of our employees back in safely. And so I asked Kim Fox, our transportation director, keep me posted. I want to know when the last bus gets back in. So I was sitting there at the office, and 4:30 came, and we didn't have all our buses back. And 5:30 came, and we still didn't have all of our buses back. And 6:30 came, and we didn't have all of our buses back. And so I'm starting to worry a little bit now. And so I broke down and I called Ms. Fox, and I said, gosh, did you forget to call me? She said, no, we still don't have all of our buses back. Now, mind you, we dismissed school at 1:30. So about 7:15, I got a call and says, well, our last bus is about 5 minutes away from Statesville High School. And I said, you're kidding me. And as it turned out, that was not a joke. Our last bus got back on that early release day at approximately 7:15, 7:20. So that's not far from my office. I went over there and met these folks. And tonight we are recognizing Amanda Payne, who is one of our incredible bus drivers, who worked about a 13-hour day that day as a bus driver. She had gotten there before daylight. She'd gotten back in well after dark. And when she got off that bus, needless to say, driving a bus from Mooresville to Statesville in snow and ice, you're going to be white-knuckled. And she was. And when I complimented her on her job, she said, look, I'm just doing what every other driver would have done today in this same situation that I found myself in. Two of our mechanics from the bus garage were out there assisting her to get that giant bus back in that snow and ice. Tony Clanton and Ed Hendren, and they're here tonight too. One of them was driving a wrecker because we did have some buses that we had to pull out of ditches and get unstuck on that snowy afternoon. Ed was driving the wrecker. Tony was following in the pickup truck, the mechanic's truck, and I asked Amanda, I said, Amanda, where do you live? And she said, well, I live in Troutman. So she was going to have to jump in her car and drive south again and go back to Troutman. And Tony said, no, leave your car here at Statesville High School. I'll drive you home, and then I'll go home. So I don't know what time those guys got home that night. It was probably well after 8 o'clock. But again, when you talk to these guys on an individual basis, what you'll hear back was, I'm just doing my job. But they did far more than their job that day. And I think these folks reflect the caliber of people that we got working in our transportation department. And we could recognize every department in the school system, but tonight belongs to the transportation department. And so if you folks will come up, and Mr. Page, if you can join me, we have a small token of appreciation for the folks tonight, and just wanted to make everybody aware of the caliber of people that we've got working out there transporting our kids to and from school every day. So please join me.
Sidebar there, a lot of folks probably don't know both those gentlemen are volunteer firemen, or used to be. I don't know whether Tony's still a volunteer at Central, but Ed used to be a volunteer also, so they both have given a lot of time and effort on the outside. And if people don't know, Ed's mother retired from the school system here, Annette Hendren. She used to be in our purchasing department. I don't know if Mr. Johnson remembers that, not the rest of the board. Mm-hmm. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now we'll move into our non-consent agenda, and we have a ton of policies here. A lot have been scratched through. Mr. Johnson, we're going to start with you with 2400. Now, I believe the ones in dark color we have to vote. Is that correct?
That's right.
So this is a voting. We'll go by each person that's presenting, if that's okay with the board, and then we'll vote at the end of each presentation. Yes. Very good. Thank you.
So policy 2400, this edit comes your way from the North Carolina School Boards Association. And as it says in your memo, this policy, the second paragraph of it, is strongly recommended for LEAs that have schools designated as restart schools. And of course, here in Iredell-Statesville schools, we do have 4 schools with that distinction. Restart schools are exempt from many of the state statutes and rules that are otherwise applicable to public schools. The recommended policy language is intended to allow restart schools in Iredell-Statesville to operate free of policy requirements that reflect statutory or North Carolina Board of Education requirements from which restart schools are exempt. You can see highlighted in red the amendment that has been provided by the legal staff there at the School Boards Association. And again, this change is coming your way, highly recommended by the legal staff at the School Boards Association.
Board members, any questions or comments? We saw this last month.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, again, I would like to reiterate my displeasure with the last sentence of this board policy. I think that it goes down into an area which is a slippery slide, and so I don't like that, so I cannot vote for this change.
The last sentence in red.
Yes, sir.
In other words,
The superintendent may exempt any school designated as Restart School authorized by so forth from any board policy requirements that corresponds to state statute or rule from which the schools are exempt by law. I don't like the way that reads.
well, I also felt that way, and then when you read the entire statement, we have the right, we can overrule him on that. It says unless otherwise directed by the board. So we have the last oversight on that, not the superintendent. So that was a concern of mine also. Basically, all it says is that you can, anyway, everybody can read it. So, but yeah, I had that same concern until I read that is in there. So it actually comes back to us for the oversight. Any other comments or questions? At this time, Chair would entertain a motion to pass policy 2400.
I make the motion, we pass policy revision, policy number 2400, board policies.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to pass policy 2400. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
5-1. Thank you. Now we'll go to Mr. Williams. Are you going to? Oh, you're not Mr. Williams.
I am not Mr. Williams, but I will present Mr. Williams' policy as well as item A8, item 5A8 on there, which is my policy that will require a vote.
And we'll vote on both of them. Very good.
So policy 2670 is the CTE Business Advisory Council. This is a new policy that is coming to us to address statutory General Statute 115-170, which requires that each LEA establish a policy on the appointment of a Business Advisory Council members. Mr. Williams has been discussing this with the board for the last several months, and this is just a policy to address that council and how the council will operate. The other policy is policy 3460, graduation requirements. There are two changes here, updated information on the course requirement tables and the legal references, and those are both required changes.
Very good. Any questions of Dr. Taylor? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to pass policy 2670 and 3460.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to pass policy 2670 and 3460. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Policies are approved. Ms. White.
I have policy 6420, contracts with the board. Basically just has some language that was modified to be up to date with the most recent general statutes. Some legal references, cross-references changed. Nothing major there. Policy 6430, purchasing requirements for equipment, supplies, and materials. This consolidates a couple of policies into one. We used to have separate policies for state, federal, and local purchasing requirements, and now it consolidates it into one. That's pretty much the gist of that one. 6440, local purchasing requirements. Like I said, we're consolidating this into the previous policies, so it does recommend that this policy be eliminated. 6442, vendor list. Again, legal references updates and some slight wording updates to be in compliance with the most recent version of the general statutes. 6450, purchase of services, adds a provision to clarify that this policy does not apply to certain types of professional services. Again, some general statutes have been updated since this policy was last passed, and some legal references have been changed. 6520, use of equipment, materials, and supplies, minor word changes, legal reference updates. 8510, school finance officer. We talked about this before, about the new duty to report to the board and the county commissioners when I receive information from the retirement system about who may be in our system, who may be subject to pension spiking.
Any comments, questions of Ms. White?
I don't have a comment well, I do have a comment. I said, thank you for doing away with some policies.
Yeah.
I've always said we got too many. And, yeah, when you consolidate them and do away with some of them, that's good for everyone. Thank you.
Chair would
I didn't see where it said in her
13.
school finance officer had to have White's wisdom to be the finance officer.
White's wisdom.
No place in there for that.
That's scary.
That's our local requirement. Chair would entertain a motion to pass policies 6420, 6430, to eliminate 6440, to pass 6442, pass 6450, to pass 6520, and to pass 8510.
Make a motion what he said.
Second.
I got that. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to do what I said, as to pass these Ms. White's policies. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. White. Ms. Weiberg, you're up with some policies.
Yes, sir. Well, tonight we're looking at policy 2310, public participation at board meetings. 3230, copyright compliance, and I'm sorry.
2310.
I'm sorry.
2310.
Isn't that
Yes.
what I have?
Yeah.
2310.
I thought you said 22.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay. Yeah.
2310, 3230, copyright compliance, and 3300, school calendar and time for learning. Not to be confused with a calendar issue coming up later.
I just had a comment about the public participation at board meetings. There has been times in the past where we've had more than 10 speakers. Did this requirement come from DPI, or was this a local amendment?
That
Not
came
local.
from the School Board Association.
School board.
School Board.
Okay.
I believe what this says is that if there's more than 10, we can reduce the time limit. Is that not what you got out of it? It gives us the ability, if a speaker, blah, 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 if it's an unusual large number of people request to speak, a majority of the board may decide to reduce the time. I don't think the board's ever not let someone speak.
I was going to say, I didn't think we had, but
I don't see that coming, but
They can reduce the time or designate a spokesperson.
yeah, if there's a group of them, I don't think we're going. I think we'll let it. I think we've always let everybody speak. I don't see that changing. If if we need to at the time, we can vote to override policy. But I call that.
What did we discuss, when we discussed this a month or so ago, about when the public comment would be in the agenda?
oh yeah.
Yeah, we decided, I think what we said was we would just continue to do it like we have and have it at the end unless it's on a
This
link.
is not the way this reads.
Okay. I thought that was, we were going to change that.
I do too, but it doesn't read this way.
It's been my contention that we may be voting on something, and we may have voted on it, and before the people get a chance to speak to us. So that could be an issue to
On the
me.
second
I've always said
page,
that.
first paragraph of the page.
At the first
It
part,
says
yeah.
The first part of it, at least.
Yes, we had asked for that to be taken out.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we asked.
So we need to make that change before we vote on this policy.
Very good catch.
Did I miss something? I'm sorry.
We had asked it last month at the first sentence, page 2. Each month, the first part of at least one, we were going to have that at the end of the regular scheduled board meeting. But I'd like to go on putting that unless this desire of the board to have put us out in there. So if we want to allow people to speak on a subject, we'll do that before we vote. Because I could see that happening with like the.
Well, it says at any time the board can establish additional procedures to ensure that public comment sessions proceed.
So that would take care of your
in
part.
an efficient and orderly manner.
Yeah.
So if you want to move, that will handle that.
Because occasionally we have a hot button topic that we're going to have speakers come in and you know I want to hear them. I think the board wants to hear them before we vote. So.
Okay.
So can you
Make
redo
that
this
change.
and bring this back?
Usually the public comment is for items that are not on the agenda, so it's for other topics.
Right.
So you'd have your own public opportunity for public conversation if you wanted it on a particular topic. I think this, in larger part, gives you the option of putting it at the first of the meeting, which may not. I was probably not here when you talked about that, but what it doesn't do is make people stay till 9 o'clock to get their 3 minutes in when they could have done that at 6:15.
That's the only way we can get an audience is to make them stay.
Well, the other part of that, too, it says the sign-up sheet will be available 30 minutes before the meeting begins for any individual group. But it says here before the meeting begins.
Well, we do that. Kelly comes in and says
But doesn't she bring that to you right before the speakers are to speak?
Yes.
So that needs to be changed as well?
No, it just says, you're reading something.
It'll just be available. It's not that it's going to be.
It will be available. Well, this is saying you got to have it at 30 minutes before the meeting begins, which we do.
Okay. When I read it the first time, I didn't read it that way, but okay.
Yeah, I think we do that all right. And, you know, if we want to go to the first part, that's up to the board.
Sure, I don't object to it, it's just that's not what we said.
Right, yeah.
If we perceive that's happening, we can change the agenda. Place on the agenda.
You vote on the
perceive that's
agenda.
coming.
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
put the
yeah.
public comment at the
Right.
second.
Just kind of don't box us in.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, make it.
This leaves it open whether we could do
Right.
that or not.
We'll get with you and do a little rewrite.
All right.
Let's pull this off the vote tonight.
Okay.
Board, we'll pull this one away from the vote. 2310.
2310.
Okay?
Okay. Moving down to copyright compliance, 3230, 7330. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's right.
Is 3230 and 7330 the same policy?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have to have it in both places?
It's the references.
Law or something, we have to do that?
By recommendation of the school board association.
Well, it's just that the policy, rather than being duplicated, it seems to be applicable in two different sections of the policy, you know, the way it's broken up into 9 or 10 different categories, and that's been my understanding of why that's done, so that you've got the same, it's the exact same policy carried over, so it's not an additional policy, but it's just doing it one time, but just saying it's applicable under this section and also under this section of the board's policies.
In 3300. Any main comments on that? Are you ready, Ms. White, to vote on these?
I'm sorry?
I was trying to see if we were ready to go ahead with these. Okay. We're going to vote. The chair would entertain a motion to pass 3230/7330 and 3300.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to pass Ms. Weiberg's policies. she's presented tonight. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Carried. Thank you.
That one will be brought back.
Yeah, we're going to bring that back next month. Mr. Armstrong.
Good evening, Mr. Page, Mr. Johnson, members of the Board of Education. I have several policies. The first one is policy 1510/4200/7270 on school safety. Are there any questions about it? I haven't had any calls or recommendations for changes. The next policy that I have is policy 6125, administering medicines to students. And you asked me in one of the CAL meetings to present that to our student services and our school nurse, and I did that. And so they were fine with the policy as written. Yes, sir.
Just to verify on policy 6125, the second line, the second sentence, it says school personnel may administer medication prescribed by, and in my copy it's got doctor and health scratched out. Should it just be doctor scratched out, and that should be healthcare practitioner?
Well, what they did, and I'm glad you asked that question, just from just reading my notes, it said the key changes includes updates terminology throughout the policy, including substituting medication and healthcare practitioner for physician. So they did.
Yeah, so they scratched out health, and that should not be correct.
Should be health care.
It should be healthcare practitioner. Okay.
And that's in the second line.
Yeah, mine's scratched out. That's why.
Yeah, mine is too.
Okay. I'll make sure that change is made. And then policy 6321, bus routes, removes the word ordinarily from the second paragraph for clarity. And then the last policy, policy 6340, transportation service and vehicle contracts, updates the title of policy 6340 and deletes reference to policy 6440 in the text in accordance with recommendation for those policies made in this update. You have a question about any of the policies?
Board have any questions or comments for Mr. Armstrong? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to pass policy 1510, 6125, 6321, and 6340.
As amended.
As amended. Thank you.
I make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion second to pass policies 1510, 6125, 6321, 6340 as amended. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. They pass. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you.
Dr. Sane, you've got a whole bunch of first readings. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the ones with the blue dots are technical changes only and will not require a vote.
There may be some changes to that, particularly on one that I would like to point out. But first, I would like to extend my gratitude for letting us postpone the sharing of this information on these policies to this month versus first reading in December. I would also like to clarify that I went through every single one of these policies word for word to make sure that there were no prior changes that were missed, and that's where some of the differences may come up, because there was one policy that was actually not reflected on our website that is important to be reflected. So I'll point those out as we go through. The first policy is policy 1610, 7800. You can see this one involves technical changes that are recommended for the legal references and just footnotes and information regarding that policy. Policy code 4040, 7310 is staff and student relation. And so this one is strongly recommended to align some of the reporting regarding physical or sexual abuse of a child committed by a licensed employee. You will notice in the language with that particular policy, I just want to make you aware that it aligns the reporting to specifically be within 5 working days of any disciplinary action, dismissal, or resignation based on the conduct. Our practice has been, once we gather enough information, sometimes that action can be lagging. We will go ahead and report to the state board, just so that you're aware of how we do things. And then if there's a follow-up, there'll be a follow-up when any of the particular disciplinary action, for example, may be concluded. So if we have enough information at the point, if you're talking about particularly sexual misconduct, that we make the reporting to law enforcement, at the same time we're making that report to law enforcement, we'll go ahead and provide the state board with the information that we have. Okay, so we're very much already in line with the changes to that policy. Policy Code 4240, 7312 is related, again, to child abuse reports and investigations. Upon review of that policy, that is really more in Mr. Armstrong's area, and we discussed that, and he will be reviewing that policy and bringing forward the relevant updates. The next one is Policy Code 7130, which is required. These are required changes for licensure. This is major because as we move more to our residencies and all of that, it eliminates lateral entry licensure information. And we talked about what we've known as the old lateral entry process is going away, and now we have these new residency licensure options, and this policy updates for that. It also modifies and relocates information on emergency permits as part of that policy.
Dr. Hussain.
Yes.
The adjunct CTE instructors. I believe this is general statutes, so we can't change it. But it talks that you can hire an unlicensed instructor for up to 10 hours a week.
Mm-hmm. Hold on 1 second.
And I know they don't understand that, but if we have a dual block, which we have a lot of our CTEs, that's 15 hours a week. Is there anything we can do about that, or I think we're locked in by general statutes, but I don't know how we could handle that.
I'll do some follow-up on that one in particular and see what I can find out.
You understand where I'm coming from?
I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I'm going to go to the licensure first, and then I'll go from that. So I'll do some research on that.
I don't think there's much we can do if I've read 115C-157.1.
It's worth a check.
Thank you very much.
It's worth a check. Okay. As you can see, Policy Code 7130R. I just have to say I'm not sure what happened with that policy, but I know when that was originally created, we brought that forth, but when I went to our website, I could not locate that policy, and that's a very important policy for us. And what I think happened is somewhere in the relocation, there should actually be a 7130 and a 7130R. Those are two separate policies, and that's because of how the definitions that are included in the 7130R. So in addition to making the recommended changes from the School Boards Association, I'm bringing this policy back to make sure that it becomes part of our
so
record.
That's why it's all in red.
Exactly. That's why it's all on red, because that action did not happen at that time.
On policy 7130,
E.
Would you use a larger font, bold that, so that incoming personnel know that it is their responsibility for the renewal of their certificate?
I would love to do that.
Please do.
So we will.
You want a large print?
Large print, whatever.
Bold, large.
Bold.
That is reimbursable, correct?
What is?
The licensure renewal, once it's been done? Or is teachers paying that now?
That they are doing, that they're paying the fee?
Yes, ma'am.
What's happening with their fee now is they pay it, And as you know, first year was the last year that we reimbursed them. So if they signed up with us for a new contract year, they had to renew that license in June. And then I think it was September or October that we reimburse those who submitted to get that feedback as part of a recognition for their commitment to Iredell-Statesville schools.
So we do reimburse them? That's
We
what
do
I'm
reimburse.
making. Okay. And everybody knows that, right?
Everybody knows that. Yep, it's been communicated. There's no reason they should not. Okay. As a matter of fact, just to let you know, all of the individuals renewing were communicated with individually on top of just the information in our environment that we did. Policy Code 7240 is a drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. And you can see that there are a number of changes that are recommended to this policy, including the application to contractors, volunteers, and visitors. Okay, it requires a school official with training or some kind of expertise in the indicators used to determine if a reasonable suspicion exists. This is something that we already have in place before anyone can be sent for a reasonable suspicion. It has to go through certain individuals for our district. It adds the requirement that employees notify both their supervisor and the appropriate HR official when they are convicted of a crime. Just another note that I want to make sure the board is aware of, our training with our personnel is to notify us when they have a charge. For example, if someone has a certain type of charge, it could take 2 years for that to go through the court system. Meanwhile, it's going to show up in the newspaper. And so our internal process, while the policy is written this way for a reason, our internal process is for them to notify us upon receiving a charge. And adds the consequences for violating the policy may include reporting to law enforcement, as well as relevant updates. Policy Code 7335 is just technical changes that updates the legal references. Changes to Policy Code 7510 are pretty substantial. They eliminate a lot of duplicative effort, and it also adds information about leave to teach in a charter, regional, or lab school. So I don't know, this is actually been in place for a minute, but for those of you who may not be aware of that, and that's strongly recommended. Policy Code 7530 is strongly recommended, and it deals largely with military leave and making sure that the requirements regarding that leave for National Guard, serving on state duty. It also adds the requirement for employees returning from leave must make sure that they meet all applicable deadlines. And it also adds the requirement to explain military leave benefits to eligible employees, as well as some organizational changes. Policy 7810, evaluation of licensed employees, is required. And it adds this provision that explicitly states that principals or assistant principals can conduct teacher evaluations in limited circumstances authorized by law. It also removes the analysis of student work pieces that were added in this policy a while back, and it also changes some footnotes. Policy Code 7900, resignation, is strongly recommended, and it also connects that requirement to notify the State Board of Education if a teacher's resignation is connected somehow to a criminal history. And you'll see this as a theme through several of these policies, and it's connected to the big story that was done on the state of North Carolina regarding, I don't know if any of you saw that, someone who went to South Carolina, then I think they went to Georgia, and then they came back to North Carolina and they were hired in CMS. And it has to do with kind of some of the attention that was brought to our background check system in North Carolina, and so this is trying to shore that up more. Policy Code 7930. Yes.
This sentence on the first page where it says the principal or an assistant principal's limited circumstances authorized by law shall evaluate teachers. Is this a change by the state?
Well, it's connected to specific changes by the state. I think that one is explicitly stated in some general statutes also with regards to a principal, an assistant principal, for example, who may be filling in for a principal, and it gives them it explicitly states their power to do those observations and evaluation of a teacher.
That's not what it says, though. That's not the way I read it anyway.
So how are you reading it?
What it's saying is the principal or an assistant principal in a limited circumstance authorized by law shall evaluate teachers and may incorporate any guidelines or strategies, so forth. What I'm saying, this was something that assistant principals could not do. Now, they may do observation.
Exactly. This is explicitly giving them the power to do that in certain circumstances.
Well, okay. So they're not going to be doing the document itself. The principal has to do, correct?
No, an assistant principal can do this.
Excuse me?
An assistant principal can do this
do the formal
as they're doing
evaluation
this.
document?
Exactly.
Is that by law now, or is that?
That is by law now, and Mr. Howe, I really think that is connected to what's going on with teacher contracts. So if you've done away with tenure, you're going to have a whole group of teachers that are on one-year contracts that's going to increase that volume exponentially, right? And so I think that the part of the purpose behind this is saying, okay, if you have a principal and 4 assistant principals and they want to break that up and have, instead of one person having to be the final sign-off on all of those, I think it's giving some leeway there. And it's stating it explicitly in this policy. Now, if you would like for me to get some additional interpretation for that, I'm glad to, but that is my understanding of everything that I've read regarding that policy.
I would, just as to keep us out of hot water.
Oh, I think we'll.
And coming back on us with lawsuits, et cetera.
I'll be glad to get that verification for you, and I'll have that next month. Okay. I think we're at Policy Code 7930, which is professional employees demotion and dismissal. This one is strongly recommended by the School Boards Association. You see the same requirements regarding criminal history, as well as updates to legal references and footnotes. The final policy is Policy Code 7940. And this is, again, where you separate the professional certified employees and the classified employees, and it does the same thing as the prior policy, but applies that to classified employees. I know my team has reviewed all of these policies, and there are no comments or questions. I'm here to answer any other questions that I can.
Mine is a procedural question, just because I don't know, and just would like to hear what you do. With any new employee, what type of new employee handbook do you have, and are all of these in there? And are they gone over with new employees, and do new employees sign a statement that they have received these policies and understand them and sign off on it and date it, and that goes into your file?
So we made our handbook electronic a few years ago, and it is actually on our website. Okay, and there's a document that's associated with that once they review the handbook, they go in electronically and sign for that training. When we have our big bulk New Year training, we have them do it right there just because there's usually so many people there. For individuals that come on during the year, the handbook is gone over with our benefits specialists in the office, and it's the same sort of process, but it's just more one-on-one versus the whole group that we do at the beginning of the school year.
That sounds like a great way to do it. I would just, in that when they sign off on it, the statement that they're signing off states what?
That they've read, they understand, and they agree to abide by the policies that have been reviewed with them.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any other comments, questions for Dr. Lassane? These are not voting items tonight. These were first readings. We'll take this up again in February.
Okay.
And you'll check on...
I certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. I have a comment to Mr. Johnson and to staff. Thank you for the way you set these policies up so that we can read them a lot better than we did when they were first given to us. I mean, it's wonderful. Good. It's much easier to read. Thank you and your staff.
All right, now comes fun and games with Ms. Weiberg. School calendar.
Yes, sir. This is always fun. Well, the survey and the two new options, and Mr. Howell, your comment about, yes, you requested one, and we just added in that second one to give another week of option. So we had 4 options. The survey went up, I think, the 8th of December.
Do we have those calendars available in hard copy?
Package last month. Package. You said bring them.
Last month, I didn't mind
Said
it.
bring them today.
Oh, I've
You should have brought
misbehaved.
them today.
Oh, well.
Well, it's all right. We can answer your questions.
Okay.
It came down, the survey came down last Friday, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had 2,265 respondents to the survey.
You'll see my 4.
So out of that 2,265 respondents, we had 1,443, or 64% of them, voted for option C.
C.
Mm-hmm. C was the one that had the 4 work days between January 23rd and March 31st, and spring break the week after Easter, that more traditional looking calendar.
That's the one I heard from everybody wanted was
Yeah.
C.
And Mr. Howell, your options did receive some percentage of acceptance, but the overwhelming favorite was option C. So thank you for that. And we won't go into the comments.
Oh, come now.
Do you have a breakdown on your people who responded back?
Yes. So we had
1,400 down and tell us what.
Out parents, about 48% of them were parents. 46% were employees. 2% were students. And other. You always wonder what other is. 4%.
Grandparents. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So it looks like option C is the most popular option.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept option C, since it got the most votes, and we don't drag this out like we did last year.
Other part of your motion.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and second that we adopt calendar C. Any discussion? I do have a question. What is the requirement of 115C-84.2 of North Carolina General Statutes for us to designate a minimum of 2 days as days in which teachers may take accumulated leave? Are they designated on this calendar?
No. Well, they are for workday, yeah. But specifically designated?
What was the?
They can take.
So the issue I think that the chairman is talking about is that we given optional work days in the beginning of school, and then the principal come back saying, no, you've got to come. So I think that's an issue that the chairman has spoke about. You know, I think it is an issue to a certain extent. I understand why there might be dissension in the ranks because of that.
In the general statutes, I'm going to read it again. Local boards shall designate at least 2 days scheduled under subdivision 5, which is the days that aren't required. This subsection is days on which teachers may take accumulated vacation leave. So my understanding is that gives the board authority to make some of these work days protected work days, in which I would like to ask our board to, let's discuss what days we want to protect.
So also in general statute, and I don't have it right in front of me, we have district required work days and we have principal required work days. And there's a certain number of days that are protected that teachers can take leave, whatever leave they have available. And to my knowledge, we have never had a school violate even a number of school-based required days that would not allow that required number of days by general statute for a teacher to be able to take that leave. Also, when those required days are set by the school, there are requirements that have to go with that regarding advance notice and different things like that, because there have been schools that we have talked to before, if that notice wasn't enough, then you can't make that a required day. So should be well advanced notice of any school-based required day also.
Dr. Lassane, what I was told by some teachers is that they had planned on taking off certain days, but they were not allowed to do that in the beginning of school because the principal made it mandatory for them to come to school that day. And this was not told to them until almost the start of school. So that's where I'm getting my information from, be it right or wrong. There needs to be some clarification if a principal needs to have staff there a certain day, and it's a work day, but yet these teachers that have been teaching for a while that don't need a lot of time in the beginning of school have that right to use those days. So that's the issue.
And so if I knew the school, I could check and see if that actually happened. Or like I said, people have called us before and said, my principal let me know a week, and this has been several years ago, but that I've even had a call like that. A principal wants to make something required next week. And we called and talked and reviewed that general statute. And so without having more information, I couldn't even check to see, did they get a letter in June that told them when this required day was, which would be fair game.
Right.
Well, all that's fine and good, but I believe, according to general statutes, we've got the right to protect some days. And I would like to see us protect the first 3 work days, the 16th, 17th, and 20th of August. Is my preference that we protect as work days that are scheduled that teachers may take accumulated vacation days. In other words, they're optional days. But that's just my thoughts on that. If any board member.
At least one of those days, the 20th, which was that Monday. Based on feedback that we received from teachers and principals, there was one day that's a required district day where we provide district PD on district initiatives. And principals and teachers had asked last year for that to be earlier in the week. They needed that earlier so that as they're planning and working with their PLCs in those groups, that they could get that training earlier. So that is the reason that was pushed to the 20th. I believe this year it was on the Tuesday. And the feedback we got was they wanted it earlier, so that was the reason.
Well, we had some of them bring them in on Thursday and Friday. I'm sorry, there was no reason for that. These teachers have been teaching 20 years. They've got there, and I'm going by feedback I'm getting from teachers. I think the exact same. Has any other board members got feedback from teachers?
No, I have a lot of it.
On this, I mean, I caught the devil last year at the start of school. I don't know about other board members. But we got 7 work days. We don't need them there. Everybody knows we need to fix the calendar. We know we don't need 7 work days. I don't see why we're requiring these teachers that's got plenty of days to come in early. But that's just my opinion. I don't make motions.
As long as they're not required.
I would ask Mr. Johnson, next time or when you have a principals meeting, just ask them to respect the law and their teachers. And I know as the boss of a school, they have to get things done. But it'd save us some phone calls if they would respect that, particularly to these teachers that has been teaching over 20 years and can get ready for school a little faster than maybe a new teacher can.
Well, the new teachers don't have days to take, so now we have to legally set 2 days that they can do it. It says here, local boards shall designate 2 days.
Ms. Page, would it be good to go ahead and approve this calendar and to ask staff to come back at our next CAL meeting and that we discuss how we will maybe amend the work days? I think some valid points have been made. I'd like to hear a little bit further more discussion.
Well, I think we'll pass the calendar tonight. My question was, do we want to, did any board member, and I hadn't talked to any board members, so I didn't know what y'all's feelings were on this. If there's no amendment to the motion's on the floor. Well, if someone would like to make an amendment, that we will either we designate 2 days or we come back next month and designate 2 days. So that would be fine. Do you want to make that as a motion?
It'll die because of no second. Ain't got a second, has it?
We hadn't made a motion yet.
Okay.
We did get a second on the calendar.
Mm-hmm. We did.
Did we?
Yes.
Yeah. We got a second.
I would defer to the attorney and ask, if we could approve the motion as is, but come back at the next meeting and amend the work days after further discussion on it.
Okay.
Well, good then. Let's do it.
All right. We got any up?
Question. Agree with that? They specifically designate 2 days, like if they wanted to designate the first 2 work days of the year. Is that your reading of that part of the statute? The part you've been reading, Martin.
GS 115C-842, local board shall designate at least 2 days. Yeah.
And you're just saying any day that's not designated is.
I don't interpret it that way, but I also hadn't thought about it until we were having this discussion from that perspective. But I have questions. I've always thought it was the availability of that everybody's having those days, but I see where that interpretation could be made.
Well, I'm trying to protect some of these days at the start of the year for teachers, but that's up to the board. I give my comments. Right now, I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I would vote for the calendar as long as we can come back and amend that, because what we're getting ready to vote on, these would then become required work days. Every teacher would have to be those 7 days before school.
No. There just have to be that 1 day. But principals, what happened last time was principals made them come in on the Thursday and Friday. See, principals are allowed, and here again, they were supposed to consult with the board, but we got 36 of them. That's not practical. But, I don't want to take it out of their hands to be able to, if we had 3 work days before school, I'd say they got to do what they got to do. But when you got 7, there were some upset teachers last year, and I don't blame them.
I think staff has heard enough that they can go back and get us some feedback and bring it back to us.
I have a suggestion. What if we tap into all of our schools, get ideas, just as we're planning the calendar ahead, get their what they would want to be their required days, see what that looks like across the district, and bring that back to you.
That's fine.
I think that would let you know whether or not there's some conflicts to be aware of. I don't think there's enough
support for a motion on it, amendment, so we're going to go ahead and vote on that, and then we'll readdress this. What I'm hearing from Mr. Kennedy is we'll readdress this.
And Mr. Kennington, I think it's not. I think if you approve the motion, it's not. You're not going to come back and undo the school calendar. But if you want to specifically say for the purpose of specifically designating those protected dates,
that's why I asked for an amendment.
Right.
And that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is you said, can we amend the calendar? And I'm saying you should say for the purpose of designating those two that can't be required. The two that Mr. Page.
Chair would entertain an amendment to we've got to be the motion on the floor, an amendment that would come back next month after hearing from administration and look at designating, protecting at minimum of 2 work days.
I make that in form of an amended motion.
Okay, I have an amendment. Do I have a second to it? Second. I have an amendment and a second. Any discussion on the amendment?
Does that mean that you're going to designate 2 days out of those 7 that they absolutely must be there? No.
That the principal can't make them
They
come.
can't make them be there on those 2 days.
They have leave days.
Yeah, I just wanted that Thursday and Friday not to be a required day. If we got plenty of time.
That's their time. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Which one you vote on?
We vote on the amendment. Any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, the amendment carries. Any further discussion on the passing the calendar as amended? I have a motion and a second. At this time, we will vote on the calendar C with the option for the board to come back next month and designate at least 2 days on which teachers may take accumulated leave. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. Calendar C, folks. Oh, my goodness.
Lord have mercy. Did the newspaper get that right?
All right, folks, get ready for the
brevity.
Facilities master plan. Dr. Miller, before you start, may I say my 30
Yes, sir.
seconds worth? Mr. Gay and I are on this committee. Ms. Christian, there's our chair who's been looking after us and cracking the whip on us for the last few months. Tremendous amount of work, I think, Mr. Howell, kind of like you were talking with your committee. I'm sorry, I want to call you Mr. Charles. Sorry. Mr. Kelly, as you talked about with your committee, we've had it's very, very complex. I hope everybody got a chance to go down and meet with Dr. Miller, because there's no possible way that we can go through the book this book that he give us all this time. If you got that, is what that's a fourth of what we work with, there's nothing simple about this. I do want to say it is a master plan for 10 years, but it really doesn't start until 2020. So we're looking at something that's 12 years out at the end of it. And as we have looked at the past work committee, things change and all, nothing's chiseled in stone, but this is the best recommendation of this committee on what we should look for as far as our growth for the next 10 years, starting with 2020.
You summed it up.
Okay, let's vote then.
Can we ask another question?
Yes, sir.
This committee has done its work, and I can appreciate that. We went down and looked at all that and all the overlaps and numbers and all this sort of thing. Are we going to get everything that's in these recommendations this year?
Not this year, no.
Okay, so you're not going to go through all the plan, whether or not
No,
we're
sir.
going to get it, are we?
What we have is a blueprint. The facilities master plan is a blueprint, and as blueprints go, blueprints often change. So as we move forward down the road, the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, there will be amendments and changes that crop up due to a lot of variables, whether it be growth, whether it be overcrowding in a particular area. But we need to have this blueprint as a roadmap to get us going in the right direction. So this blueprint is the culmination of probably, Jennifer, hours and hours, probably 8 or 10 meetings that we've had, 3 hours a meeting. And we had a group of 19 people, and I'm going to, as I go through here, Kelly, if you can keep up with me, I'm going to go quick.
And if I'm not, you tell me.
You have this PowerPoint, so I'm not going to go through every page of the PowerPoint because you can look it over yourself. And, of course, with any questions you have, we'll try to answer. But the task force members, which are on the screen, were appointed by the County Commission, the school board, and Mitchell Community College and Mooresville graded school districts. And these are a group, a broad range of people, including parents, and there's a few staff, former staff people, retired people, some professional people, business people. So it was a very good group. They worked tirelessly, and I'd like to say everybody showed up at every meeting. They didn't. But most people made enough meetings to make a significant difference. Now, the task force overview, just keep flipping it through, and I'm going to go very quickly.
Now, Kenny, I have to break this up into 2 parts because it would only scan so many pages at a time.
All right. Here's the contents of what we have. Task force overview, 19 members. Basically, it's going to end up being about 12 3-hour sessions by the time we finish. Met at the facilities and planning in Troutman. Organization, we organized everything into districts. So we had District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 was Mooresville graded, and then we had Mitchell Community College. ISS, current conditions. What we're going to talk about is ISS. We can't tell Mitchell or Mooresville graded what their needs are. So what we're discussing and what we tried to focus on was ISS. Current conditions in ISS, you can see those. We have 4.2, almost 5 million square feet, 1,600 acres. We've had some economic improvement, and that was cited in the capital budget numbers. We've had some improvements in our capital budget. I can't say we've had improvements in our current expense budget, which we'd like to see. So keep going. As we scroll through, all right, stop. Back up a little bit.
Yeah, hang on, it got ahead of me.
Went a little fast there.
Yeah.
All right, we had data collection, and what we did for data collection is multiple sources. We started with our 2012 Facilities Task Force plan, which had been modified some over the years. Then we went back and we updated our school requests, our maintenance staff recommendations, and we even had some engineers and architectural recommendations. So we brought all that information together into an extensive audit. And we do this yearly, but we updated it with a little more detail for this particular task force. Once we did the audit, we also included program information. For instance, we have a new early college at North Iredell. We have new programs down the road in our CTE program that we took into consideration. And we also have some 10-year growth projections from the state. So all this stuff was bundled together and reviewed to come up with our projects and our roadmap. Okay. This is a sample audit sheet. This particular one is Cloverleaf. Then we had processing the data. And what we did is brought all this data together. The task force broke up into work groups. They would go separately into work groups, and they would look at the data and the projected or recommended projects. And then they would use basically a worksheet in which they would use a Likert scale. For those who are not familiar with the Likert scale, 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, and they would rate the priority level of these different projects. So then we put all that data together. brought it back as a group and discussed it, and came up with our projects list. This particular slide is showing one of the work boards, and we had magnetic, I guess, I don't know, little slides or whatever that we would put on this magnetic board, and we can move them around. And that way, if we felt like, okay, this project needs to be in phase 2 or phase 1 or whatever, then we could slide them around. So that's sort of how we dealt with data. Work board, this is continued. That's some of the cost estimates. This is a sample information and projects chart. All this is in here so y'all can look through. Work and consensus chart. What we tried to come to was consensus as a group. You know, can everybody agree that these are the important and top priorities for our particular projects? And so when we came to consensus, that's when we could start actually putting things into phases. Okay, these are the issues we had to deal with. Deferred work. Mr. Page mentioned the fact that we have currently about $60 million in deferred work. Now, this is not work that is a safety-related issue, but it's things like aging or life cycle costs. When you have HVAC equipment that's 20 years old, it's going to break down, and you can patch it up and it's going to break down, and you can patch it up and it's going to break down. So it's that kind of life cycle things that need to be upgraded or replaced or improved that we're talking about. And when you're talking about 4.25 million square feet, 40 campus sites, 1,600 acres, ranging in age from 1926 to 2016, Cool Springs, you got a broad range of variables there that you got to deal with. So that's what we're talking about with deferred work. Okay? It's a national problem. It's not just our problem. This thing goes nationwide. Go to the next slide. And if you look at this chart, which is very hard to see here, but if you flip it over, you can see it on your sheet. The estimate is that in the United States, we have. I need to get me some new glasses. This is too small for me even. But we have about $38 billion of capital construction that needs to be done, or we're going to be short about $38 billion, and it's about 542 billion in backlogged education work that needs to be done in the United States. So we're not the only one. 542 billion. That's $500 billion infrastructure. Okay. This gives you an idea. In 2012, our task force, this was a 4-year trend at that time, and you can see our annual capital, and you can see how it dropped off from $4.8 million to $1.7 million to $1.1 million in 2010-11. This is the only concern I have. If we have a big economic downturn, is the only concern. That's the big concern. Right now, we are in a good state. We're in a good position on our capital, and you'll see that in just a minute. Also, if you can look at the maintenance budget, it's been pretty flat. It's up and down because some things you just got to do. Square footage, you can see that rise in square footage from 3.5 million in 8-9 to 3.9. Then if you go to the next slide, this is the current conditions, 13-14 through 16-17. And you'll see annual capital growing significantly. And actually in 17-18, that number grew to 8.4. But we did back out computers. So you can see that maintenance budget has also been pretty flat. And then the square footage continues to go up. And next year, that 4.25 million is based on next year's projection, opening up the new facilities that we're going to be opening up. These are visual examples. We can go through these pretty quickly. Just don't go too fast. This is sidewalks breaking up, paving, things of that nature that need to be replaced. Just keep going. You can see uneven areas. This is pulling away from the building. Old concrete, broken sidewalks, asphalt parking lots that need to be redone, paint floors and ceilings. That didn't come out real well, but the paint's blistering in a few places. We try to do pretty good with our painting, but we're getting behind. Okay, keep going. That, back up just a second. That is South Iredell. And one of the things I want to point out here, the ceiling still has the same 1966 ceiling and lighting that it had in 66. And the windows are the same as 1966. So they're not thermal. They're very inefficient. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about on backlog of upgrading and improving. North Iredell is identical to this, okay? Old windows, inefficient. This is a door on an old shop area. It needs to be replaced. Old garage door at West Iredell High. That's the original gym doors at West Middle. This is some of the old bleachers in a couple of our elementary schools that look like this. That's some old lighting in one of our elementary gyms. This is Presley. It has an inverted ceiling. The ceiling goes like this, and it's like this. And the lights are up in the upper part of that ceiling. It's just one little light bulb, if you've ever seen it. Okay? This is life safety and electrical. This is an electrical panel. These things are just old. They just run their life cycle. That is a fuse box. We still have fuse boxes in some places. And Mr. Galligan's laughing because he knows that is not what we want to have. Okay? Old breaker panels.
I need to go to the next part, Kenny, because they don't let me do so many pages.
Okay, go ahead.
Per section, so hang
We're
on just a
going to
second.
limit him to one PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It would only scan like 30 pages at a time, so I split his. Hang on, my batteries aren't.
We got kickoff in 20 minutes. You know I'm going to go fast.
It doesn't matter to the second half.
Right, anyway. Okay. This is an old intercom system at Third Creek that you can't even get parts for it now. If I didn't have Doug Wooten, I don't know what we'd do. Okay? Just keep going. Just sort of scroll through real slow. That is an old mechanical clock system. Okay? Keep going. Just sort of scroll through it, and I think they get the
Well, I don't want to go too fast because then it moves it
Now
down
that's
quicker than I can
Monticello,
control.
which we have taken off as far as a school, but that gives you an idea of an open classroom kind of setup. Plumbing and wastewater. We still got some of the old sinks from the 50s and 60s. Old fixtures. HVAC mechanical is getting to be a real big issue. With the cold weather, we really did see it. If you're going to break down, this kind of weather to break down, keep going. That is the boiler at ADR. That's the boiler that's been creating such a big problem for us. Okay? 1950s. Keep going. Yeah, just keep scrolling. That's asbestos tile. It's okay as long as it's encapsulated, but we'd like to take it out. Old piping, old chiller. You get the idea. Just keep scrolling through. We'll go pretty quick here. The reason I did this, you see those roofs? You see the bright white? That's new. You see the dark? That's got to be replaced. And if you get a Google Earth map and you look at it, you can tell the good roofs from the bad roofs. So anytime you see that dark sort of model-looking roof, that's a roof that probably needs to be replaced pretty soon. Okay, just scrolling through. That's North High. Sharon. Now, stop right there. That's South High. Notice South High's got more roofing needs than North High. We've been working on North. Okay. MB Mills. Here's some new program information. Most of you are familiar with this. This is just our E-Academy and our different program facility needs that we have for those. Okay. This is new. Back up just a little bit. New schools are expansions that we need. And these are our growth areas, particularly South Iredell High, Lake Norman High, Lake Shore Elementary, Woodland Heights Elementary, Central, and East. Central's a little outlier. It's become a destination school. For some reason, the parents really want to go to Central, and Central has a good many out-of-district kids up there. East, dual immersion program, they're overcrowded, okay? ADM projections, that's for South. And I'm going to scroll on through. You can look at this at your leisure. This is interesting, the growth data on, look at that part on the charters and the private schools, okay? Proposed development areas. Scroll down. This is particularly true of the south end of the county. Stop right there.
Wait a minute, it got ahead of me.
Okay. The projection right now, if things were to stay like they are, is that we would have a potential for about 2,673 kids from Troutman south if they build out. Now, 2,673 kids, we don't know where they're going to go. They may go high school, it'd be middle school, elementary, it might go charter school, private school. We don't know. But if all those kids were to happen to go to our schools in that end of the county, then we've got a big problem that we've got to deal with. So, that's kind of the information we also looked at, okay? This is non-public education in Iredell County. It's pretty interesting. Mr. Johnson's mentioned this quite often, that non-public education, we're serving a lot of kids, or not serving a lot of kids that live in our district. And then the summary of facts, and then really the last few pages are the main thing that we need to, this is what we're asking you to really approve tonight, is the next going down.
That was my last one. I may be back.
Okay, then go back to facilities master plan, which is.
Page 42, or no?
All right, go the other way. That's the last one you got?
That's it.
All right, look in your booklet and look at, after summary of facts, you'll see facilities master plan, phase 1. It's maybe the last 3 or 4 pages of this. Yeah. If you'll look at that last facilities master plan, phase 1, those are the projects that the facilities task force is recommending in phase 1 for Iredell-Statesville schools. Okay?
Sorry, there it was, Kenny. Sorry.
Yeah, they're right there. It's on the left. Okay? Project on the left, and then your phase 1 is a 3-year cycle. Then if you look at the next is phase 2. I apologize for the size of these, but there's no way to get them on a piece of paper without it. Those are the phase 2 projects, and then phase 3. Okay? It's a beast. That's all I can say. It's a beast. It's a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of background, a lot of context that you have to put into the perspective. What it means for this board is this plan is a roadmap. It's not chiseled in stone. If this board sees that there needs to be adjustments to this plan in the future, they can do that. This does not keep you from doing it. What we would like to have is the blessing of the board to move forward with the next part of the process. The next part will be for the facilities task force to put together Mooresville graded, Iredell-Statesville, and Mitchell, put all that together, the facilities master plan, and take it to the county commission. When we take it to the county commissioners, we're saying these are the needs that we have assessed need to be done in the next decade. We need to know how you're going to fund them, because the county commission ultimately are the funding agency. How much are we talking about? For Iredell-Statesville Schools part, estimates right now, based on current conditions, are about $188 million for Iredell-Statesville. That's total for all 3 phases. Okay? Phase 1 is $173 million. I'm sorry, I'll back up. I told you wrong. Phase 1, what I did was I rolled the capital needs, the work, deferred work, I rolled it into this. So in phase 1, we're looking at $173 million total, including Mooresville, Mitchell, and Iredell-Statesville. In phase 2, we're looking at $124 million, and that's all 3 of them. And in phase 3 is $11 million. So you can see most of it's loaded up in the front 2 phases. Our part of this whole package is $188 million. That's our part as Iredell-Statesville Schools. The first phase, we have $106 million proposed of that 173. The second phase, we have $75 million. The third phase, we have $6 million. So that gives you an idea of the breakout. I'll give you an example. Mooresville Graded has about $48 million in needs.
In the first phase, is that correct?
They would like to see all theirs in the first phase. Those are all tied together.
And what's Mitchell's in the first
Mitchell's
phase?
is 73, I believe.
In the first phase?
No, total. Their first phase is, I'll have to go back and look.
The first phase about 25.
That counting their new science building they're going to build?
No, that's in this current one. Okay, Mitchell's first phase, well, Mitchell's total is 73, and I'll have to go back to a different look here. You would ask me that, wouldn't you?
Well,
I'm trying to hurry.
All
right, Mitchell's first phase is 22.
22
million, 377.
22 million. That's 40-some million in the second.
Well, what you're asking us is for us to approve what the committee has come up with, so then y'all, Mr. Christian, you'll be taking it to the county commissioners and give it to them, and hopefully they'll use that as a roadmap for the future. I don't know if it's our, personally, the first phase is what we're probably going to deal with for the next years, because that includes our new high school, and let's face it, we may as well just put that out there. We've got to have a high school, board members. That's number one. We've got to have a high school, and we've got to shore up some of the buildings we've got today. Kenny's got a very aggressive plan to use about $30 million in reoccurring capital, and if you turn, and maybe I'm getting ahead of you, Kenny.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, if you want to turn over to
this is the nuts and bolts as far as we're concerned, is when you get to the
ISS project summary. It's about 3 or 4 sections after the PowerPoint. Then you go back about 3 sections. It says ISS project summary. It's a single page.
Starts with the north zone. And one thing that the committee did do is we tried to make sure that we had work in every area of the county, trying to be somewhat fair to each district, but not letting that drive the bottom line. It was more driven on need basis, but we do need to make sure each area is treated fairly.
Just so everybody will be in the right place, go to the PowerPoint, go to the end, okay? Go to the end of the PowerPoint, and you'll see a page that says Facilities Master Plan, okay?
I'm in the big book. What are you
All right,
in?
I'm in the big book.
Okay.
I want to get everybody where they need to be. All right, that Facilities Master Plan is big pages. Flip past it. The next one, that's a 8.5 by 11, Facilities Master Plan Phases and Timeline. Mooresville Graded. Then there's big pages behind it. Flip that one. Then ISS Deferred Work by District. Okay, this is to be funded from existing revenue sources. All right, that's what Mr. Page has been talking about, that we're going to try to fund through our recurring capital. Then go past that one to the next one. ISS Deferred Work by District to be funded by the county. Okay? And when you go past that one, ISS Project Summary. That's it in a nutshell right there. The summary. And you'll see it like this.
There's red outline, green outline.
And it's going to have The last column on it will tell you how much money is proposed to be spent in each of the districts. So, for instance, North Iredell, the proposal is $5 million to be spent from recurring capital. That's that first number, set of numbers in red. In blue, $6 million will be spent, hopefully, from funding from the county. So the total amount for the north zone is $11,345,000. That's the north zone. And if you flip to the next one, it's the west zone. Same thing. Projected from recurring capital, $11 million. Projected from funding from the county, should they approve it, $23 million. Total in the West District, $34 million. The West District has been behind. We've done work in the north. We've done work in the south. We've done work at Statesville. The West District is the one that's next. Then if you look at the next page, it is the East Statesville District. And then the next page is the South District. And then the last page is Lake Norman District, or the last page of these. Okay? And then the very, very last page is a summary that has new construction. And that new construction is a new high school. That's number one priority. A new middle school projected out in phase 2, and a new elementary school projected out in phase 2. Both of those would be in the southern end of the county or south of Troutman.
The new middle school is an addition to the two we're building right now?
Yes, but it'll be down the road 5 to 7 years probably.
Okay.
So that phase 2. This is a lot of information to throw at you one time. That's the reason I wanted to sort of sit down and go through individually, and we did. And, of course, Chuck and, Mr. Gallion and Mr. Page were on the facilities task force. So they know what we're talking about here. Mr. Kennington's dug in it pretty good. So with that being said, I'll be glad to answer questions, but you can get as deep as you want to get or you need to get.
Well, that's very clear. We ought to do phase 3 first. It's cheaper.
Well, the positive is, we're in a good economy right now.
That out just like that. Huh?
Hey.
Yeah.
But
this has not been presented to the county commission yet. I think the county commission, they've been there. They've got county commissioners on the committee. So they understand what we're talking about. But the total investment over a decade, now we're talking a decade. We're not talking about next month. But the total investment over the decade could be as much as $300 million in all the different educational areas. Our part of that is 188.
Like you said earlier, the longer we put it off, the more costs go up.
Yep.
And board members, I hope you can, after seeing these figures, understand why in our top 5 legislative priorities that we identified back in December, long-term facilities was number 5. We really do believe that when you throw Morrisville in here, you throw Mitchell Community College in here, it begs the question, does Iredell County have the capacity to do this? We really think it's time for us to sit down with our legislative delegation from the General Assembly and share this information with them and ask the General Assembly to do for K-12 what they did for community colleges and the universities 2 years ago. There needs to be a statewide bond referendum for K-12 education facilities.
We have to be very careful with that, because if we're not, we could end up supporting, because the plan I saw on the original, where they were going to do it by the tier system, we weren't going to get enough money to be worth the state doing a bond. So we've got to make sure that, because if it's done on the tier system, how many billion, what was it, $2 billion that they were talking about? We were going to get 18 million. 18 million doesn't build us an elementary school.
That's right.
So
and that's why in our legislative priorities, we did say that it should be allocated on an ADM basis.
Right. And that's I think that's the whole key to it. If it's done, if it's not done that way, we have to be careful.
That's right.
Supporting it.
Absolutely.
But the task of the Facilities Task Force was to bring to you recommendations and projects that prioritize, which that is what we have. We'd like to have permission to move forward with the next phase, which is, or the next part of the process, which is to take it to the County Commission.
Now, Ms. Christian, when were you planning to present this to the county commissioners?
There isn't a set date. Really, the next step was that Morrisville graded their board. Your counterpart has already approved their presentation. The Mitchell Board of Trustees will need to do the same, and then for this body to approve, and then to put together a presentation to take to the county commission. So it's really that based on input from you tonight and what the timetable.
Meet Wednesday.
We're meeting Wednesday and planning to start mapping that out.
So Mooresville's approved theirs. I guess what I'm asking, were y'all looking for we have it as a vote tonight. Mm-hmm. Is the board comfortable in approving or disapproving this tonight?
You work too hard.
Well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Facilities Task Force recommendation.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Facilities Task Force recommendation. Any discussion?
I'd like to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
To you or Mrs. Johnson, how accurate do you think the state enrollment projections are?
The state projections?
Yeah, because if you look at it,
the state projections, actually, I don't consider them to be overly accurate, and here's why. They were done prior. A lot of that was done prior to charter schools, private schools, and all this. So they use the birth rate, and then they use cohort populations. And what we're finding is they may be accurate at the birth rate in the early grades, but they're missing the boat in the upper level because people moving in. A lot of move-ins. And so they're missing some of the growth piece that we have in our county. I think it does bode well for, some other counties, but I think for our county, they're missing that move-in economic growth piece. And so I think what we're seeing is ours did go down during the economic downturn because what happened? People didn't move in because, economy was bad. Now the economy's starting to perk back up. Now we're seeing these numbers starting to go back up. And I think what we're going to see is we're going to see an increase gradually. It could accelerate very quickly should these build-outs happen more quickly. We've got potential for 2,300 kids that could just all of a sudden manifest themselves. So to answer your question, Mr. Kennington, I think they're accurate to a degree in a lot of places, but I think they're missing us just a little bit. Us and Mooresville, because they have us going all the way down to what, 18,000? Yeah,
17.8.
Yeah, 17.8, and that's probably not going to be the case. We don't have any charter schools right now that have been approved next year to open up. I don't think, do we, Mr. Johnson? So the charter schools we have are going to be the charter schools that are existing now. And what happened was, those years they're showing us going down, charter schools were opening up and absorbing that growth. So in their numbers, they're looking at public. If one charter school closes, it could overwhelm one of our schools in a heartbeat if one of them closed.
But the point, we're leaving it on the table. It doesn't matter what it's going to be 3 years from now. What was the figure you had a minute ago? 60 million that we needed right now?
Yeah.
That's right. We need the 60 million right now.
Yeah.
For the 20,000 students that we have. We'll need 60 million for 18,000 students that we have 3 years from now. That's not going to change. So if there's 3 more charter schools come in, and take away those students, and we still have 18,000 students, we're going to need the same facilities that we're talking about.
Yes.
We're going to need the upgrades, we're going to need the rebuilds, and we're going to need new facilities.
That's correct. But the question was, how accurate do we think the numbers are from the state?
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that has any bearing, because we're still going to need what we need regardless. No disrespect, but I mean, if they grow by 10%, we're still going to need those. If they fall by 10%, we're still going to need them. So to talk about the number of students and student growth, we're still going to be asking, and we're still going to be behind.
Sure.
The
You're
numbers
correct.
that we've talked about over the last 10 years, for example, have always been in the neighborhood of 15 million, we got 3 million. Our higher math up here that we've been playing with, we're going behind by $12 million a year. That's this whole thing. That's everything you're saying. And that's how far behind we are. So the rest of it, to me, is rhetoric. I mean, we do what we can with what we get when we get it.
Sure.
Well, I think it's interesting if you went down and saw the growth map. That's just shocking. I mean, we got 1,900 homes approved in Troutman now. I think the figures are not taking in the growth. I'm really afraid our southern end is getting ready to explode. If I live down there, Miss Bonham, you do. If you go down there and see all these houses being built, if those houses have kids, we're in trouble. But kind of to your point is it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let me say this: we didn't use the state growth figures for our projections.
But think of the rent that you can get for your basement.
Ooh, that's an idea.
You're only going to get the money the commissioner's going to give you.
Well, there's one factor that's going to drive our population, and that's I-77.
Mm-hmm.
If they can ever widen it and do it fairly, then that is going to make it accessible, Charlotte, to more people, and that's going to increase our population.
It's coming.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming.
I heard an interesting little sidebar. I heard an interesting presentation today at developers meeting in Mooresville. They had 2 gentlemen there, one from DOT and one from California, who is big into the autonomous automobiles.
Oh, God.
And according to these gentlemen, the autonomous automobiles are coming. Get ready, they're coming. And when they do, it's going to change the whole dynamics of transportation and the way that we go to and from work or to and from anywhere.
I call for the question.
Thank you. We need to focus back on
Yep.
where we're going. There's a motion and a second to approve the facilities master plan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller, for that hard work.
Absolutely. Thank you for your leadership, Ms. Christian.
Miss Jennifer, good job.
Team effort, 19 people.
Mr. Blattner, you're what's left between us and a closed session. You thought I was going to say going home.
No. You have before you the Digital Learning Teaching and Learning Department applied for a planning grant from DPI. This is to increase online staff development opportunities for our teachers and get some good structure and a template in so that we can really scale this up quickly. The grant is for $50,000. Per board policy, any grant for $50,000 or greater needs board approval before we accept it. All these funds must be expended before June 30th. There's no staff involved in this. It's mostly contracted services, stipends for creating of material, and the testing of an incentive program with our teachers, both virtually and in tangible needs. That's the short version of all that. Do you have any questions? Pardon me? No match required.
No matching, no additional people. And
no initial people.
You're ready to accept it. We've got the approval.
Got approval. We have the plan in there. So if you choose to accept it, then we'll go tomorrow.
Is that a motion, Mr. Gay? Did you make a motion to accept this?
Second.
All right, I'm giving hand signals out there. Still third for Kenny. I have a motion and a second to pass the acceptance of the North Carolina Digital Learning Grant. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. Thank you. We have public comment at this time. It's Crystal Belk. Is she here? Desiree Penner, is she here? Not here. Very good. That's the end of public comments.
You outlasted them.
Do what?
You outlasted them.
Yeah, I outlasted them. I think the weather probably did. Board members, do y'all have any comments?
I do. Sorry to keep y'all here, but I heard a report on the news this morning that distressed me very much. And basically, there was a study done by Florida State, and we already know that teenage suicide is up. According to the statistics, the suicide rate among teenage girls has gone up 60%. And they attributed that to iPhones. Because,
excuse me, to what?
To iPhones. They attributed that to iPhones because the young ladies didn't talk to each other anymore. Everything was done with the iPhone. They got separated from speaking to one another. And then, of course, I got invited to the party and you didn't and all that sort of thing, and that's a big issue in high school.
Drama.
So it is.
Drama.
So, this is something that we need to be concerned about. I know there's a group here in Statesville that's going to do a walk against that. So when you hear about that, maybe you can, join in, if possible, a suicide walk against it. So it bothered me very much that this figure is a 60% increase. It's unbelievable. Thank you.
Timely comment, Mr. Howell. We've had 3 in our school district in the last 18 months. And up until 18 months ago, it was almost unprecedented in our district. But it is a national crisis.
Any other comments, board members?
I can't see. Mr. Armstrong's still here? I believe he is, yeah.
Yep.
I just want to say we had the holiday tournament continued on. It had been going on for a long time, and still down the Mooresville they hosted it. Mr. Armstrong was there, and Mr. Page, but our high schools were all there, and Lake Norman ended up winning it, the boys, and our North Iredell girls won the girls. So holiday tournament's still going on 3 days, and had a good tournament, and Mooresville was a very gracious host. Got their new gym finished, and almost got that auditorium finished too. So if you're down that way, visit, and they did a good job. Appreciate Mr. Armstrong being there on holiday, but everybody else got there. They had a good tournament.
And I'd like to thank Mr. James and his wife for hosting the Christmas party.
Absolutely.
Way to go, Mr. James.
Yeah, good job, Max. Absolutely.
And we'll be at North Iredell next year for the tournament.
Oh, I thought you were for the Christmas party. I'd like to comment on to our members. February's coming up, and I think I heard Ms. White say that we'll start discussing a little bit about budget and start looking toward the budget, which is always an absolute thrilling thing to do. I swear by the time we get done with one, we start talking about another. When we looked at just tonight, for example, we talked about $13 million for computers and $220 million for capital projects. Budgeting is getting tougher and tougher. And board, we're going to have to make some hard decisions in the next few months. And I certainly don't look forward to that. But I just wanted to say this is going to be a hard year for budget. Looking at everything last year, we knew that this coming year would be a tough year for us. So just get ready for that, and we'll try to figure out how to take care of our children the best way we can with what we have.
Are we meeting Wednesday at 10 South Iredell?
No, that's been changed to the 17th. At the unit.
You're talking about the
I'm showing 9
education
o'clock
task.
South Iredell Wednesday for a board budget meeting. South Iredell High School at 9.
No, sir.
That's not on.
February the 17th.
Been moved to 17th at Unity. Is it Unity?
That's education task force.
Yeah.
Committee.
Right. I don't know about a budget meeting at South Iredell.
You run there and see what's about.
Yeah, you run down there and tell us all how that meeting went, because I don't know.
Originally, the task force at South Iredell.
Thank you.
You just dreamed about that.
No, we have a task force meeting.
That's the date we proposed,
Okay.
but the county could not keep
All
that
right,
date.
okay.
Task force meeting the 10th.
Yeah, we got a task force meeting tomorrow.
Task force meeting, no, 10th. 10th, right, Dr. Miller? Jennifer? She said, it's Wednesday the 10th, right?
Wednesday the 10th.
Yeah, okay, Wednesday, not tomorrow. I don't know what today is.
No, civil services.
I thought we'd been here long enough we'd moved into Tuesday. Seems like we have been. All right, any other board member comment? Mr. Johnson, up to you now.
All right, sir. I'll be really brief. I know everybody wants to get home and watch the ball game.
Does
he
have 3 minutes?
Yeah,
start the clock over
there. Did you guys know that January is School Board Member Appreciation Month?
Yeah.
And so with some of the decisions we threw out to you tonight, you're going to be earning your pay and maybe second-guessing yourself about why you're sitting in those chairs. But on behalf of the staff, I would like to say thank you for your service. It's not easy, is it? And monumental decisions to make. And you guys do a good job of keeping the kids as your focus, too. I think that is the one filter that you run most of your decisions through, is this in the best interest of children. So thank you for your service. I want to take a moment and just tell you about an audit that we had back in December. The Child Nutrition Department was selected for a random audit from DPI, and they identified 4 schools to visit: East Iredell Elementary, Harmony Elementary, Statesville Middle, and South Iredell High School. Talked to Tina Wilson, our child nutrition manager, today, as a matter of fact, and there were no financial findings in that audit, which is always a big celebration for us. They pulled over 600 free and reduced applications, and there were no findings there. All of them were nice and clean. Want to send accolades to each of those schools, too, because all of them, there were some minor issues at one school that's already been corrected, but there were no audit findings. And the Child Nutrition Department continues to just really impress me. One of the things that Ms. Wilson is looking at is a dinner program. Can you believe that? Serving dinner to our kids. But that's a good thing, because we do have a lot of kids in our district that go home and there is no supper there for them. So in the months ahead, we're looking at East Iredell Elementary School, NB Mills, Statesville Middle, and Statesville High School. This program is 100% supported by the state of North Carolina, so it's no cost to us. And I just really give accolades to Ms. Wilson for bringing that to our district. Mr. Gallions already mentioned my next item, the Hall of Fame. The holiday tournament was a roaring success down at Mooresville High School. And I tip my hat to Ryan Pagarsh. He's a young, upcoming leader in our community who has pulled together this Hall of Fame committee, and they took over the tournament this year from the Statesville Record Landmark, and it was a roaring success. And kudos to all of our teams, particularly North Iredell High School and Lake Norman High School, who were champions in that. I passed this down the road to you just a minute ago. If you got that in your mailbox, what would you think?
I think Mark's doing a good job in Lake Norman.
Pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yep.
And you heard Kenny a minute ago talking about the number of charter schools and private schools, and the fastest growing school in North Carolina is, guess what? Homeschooling. Fastest growing. We have 2,000 homeschools in Iredell County. But we do ask each of our 36 principals to now market their schools. And that's part of the new era of public education that we find ourselves in. And the dual immersion program that you guys approved for us last year is one of the marketing tips there that Mark is putting out in his community down there. When they opened their applications, they had, I think it was 10 to 12 applications within the first 10 minutes. It's an online process. So when the staff and I talk to you about marketing schools and choice options, it really, really matters. And I want to thank you for your vision that you have in allowing us to do things like this. The Chinese Cultural Exchange Program, which has been very successful here in our community, is getting ready to launch again. We have a cohort of students that will be arriving here February the 3rd, and they will be staying through February the 20th. About 170 children will be coming here to Iredell County from China. We'll be working in several of our schools with those kids, and we'll also be partnering with Mooresville Graded School System to place some of those students there as well. And we are still looking for host families. So if anybody at the sound of my voice is interested in taking a young Chinese child into your home, please get in touch with us and support us with that.
What are the dates on that, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. They will be arriving on February the 3rd through February the 20th. And we will be celebrating the Chinese New Year February the 17th at Statesville High School. And that program is going to start about 11 o'clock and go to 4 o'clock. I'll give you more detail about that when we get it nailed down just a little bit. But
will they be coming in down at Cass like they normally do with the buses and all that, meet down like on Sunday maybe?
Yeah, the families will meet them there and pick them up. A couple other items that you will want to make note of is January the 15th, our community celebrates Martin Luther King Community Prayer Breakfast at the Statesville Civic Center. That program, the meal is served at 7 a.m. and the program is at 8. We have a number of our schools that participates in that event, and so please let us know if you'd like to attend, and we'll save a seat for you there. The Education Task Force is meeting January the 17th at 10 o'clock at the Unity Center. And we'll be meeting the new interim county manager that day, Beth Jones, and we look forward to working with her. And then here's a unique opportunity for all of us. Thank you for approving the service dog at Presley School. You have an opportunity to meet Jake on January the 24th at 9:30 a.m. Principal Mark Grega is opening the school up to an open house that day to let everybody see the combined Monticello and Presley schools and to introduce Jake, the therapy dog, to the community. So lots of good things going on throughout the school system, and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
When is the Mooresville Chamber dinner? 23rd?
23rd, isn't it?
The Mooresville,
I believe it's 23rd.
Of January?
Wednesday.
January. That's a Tuesday, I thought.
that's coming up really soon.
Yeah.
It is this month.
Never mind.
I put that in my Friday update to you, but I'll double check it for you.
We've got it.
22nd or 23rd.
Something like that.
Yep.
All right. Very good.
States was in February, I believe.
15th is a holiday, 22nd, 23rd are work days. And we have our next meeting February 5th. Hard to believe it's moving that fast. Anything else before we go into closed session? The chair would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Make a motion, we go into closed session.
Read the.
Would you like me to read it?
read the little thing here.
We'd already read it once.
Yeah, I know, but we got to read it again.
He told me too that although I did it last year, we got to pay taxes again this year.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's the rumor.
According to North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11, make a motion, board enter a closed session, discuss
Personnel
and attorney-client privilege.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion second, go into closed session. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Let's take a quick 2-minute break.
motion to go back.
Second.
I have a motion second to go into open session. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're in open session.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Brady, I gotta get that food real quick.